Getting us started for this evening. Good evening, good morning, wherever you may be. Thank you very much for joining tonight's panel on this conversation about independent animation. I am your host, Angela Sanchez. No, I do not do radio. Yay. But before we get started, I do want to observe that today is Indigenous Peoples Day in the US. If you are based in the United States or anywhere in the occupied lands of the Americas, I would invite you to take a moment to check out this website here called nativeland.ca. The link is in the chat, and I'll repost it again at the end of this session because I know we're going to have a lot of chats to do. But feel free to take a click on this. You can look at it after the talk, but I encourage you to look and learn the name of the native community whose land that you occupy. Indigenous peoples, their languages, their customs are still very much alive today. And I am based in what is called the Los Angeles Basin, but what has been since time immemorial been the unceded land of the Gabrielino Tongva, Tataviam, and Chumash people. If you're also in this area, or if you're simply curious, one site to also check out is tongva.land, which provides opportunities on how to get involved. Curiosity is always a good place to start because it invites education and hopefully compassion and action. So thank you. To begin our webinar tonight, again, I'm Angela. Some of you might recognize me from an organization called Latinx in Animation. I am a professional animation writer, and yes, the industry is in a very tough spot right now. Sometimes a response that we often hear is, just go indie. But indie doesn't always equal easy. So tonight we're joined by several indie animation creators who will share their own project stories and lessons learned. Thank you all for your time tonight. A couple of housekeeping notes before we dive in. For our attendees, please drop your questions into the Q&A box. We will reserve at least the last 15 minutes of tonight's session for audience questions. Please keep your questions respectful. All right, let's jump in. So a round of introductions, please, starting with Jean. Please tell us your name, what you do / your role in the animation industry, and the title of your work.
Sure. Hi, I'm Gene Goldstein. I am president of Jellybox Studio, a little up and coming animation studio. I've done a lot in the actual big pants industry, animation industry, storyboarding, design, directing. But as Angela mentioned, everything's in shambles, so I'm trying to figure out the indie animation route, and been learning a lot of lessons, and I'm excited to try to share some of them. And my work is we're currently doing a series called No XP. That's our main kind of flagship title right now. We've done a bunch of these shorts helping the guild negotiations get some awareness. A lot of people have probably seen. And I did a short called Planet Panic back in the day that people seem to like. So
Mission, yeah.
That's right.
Kristen, you're up next.
Hey, my name is Kristen Gish. I work in the industry mostly as a storyboard artist and director. I worked on some guild projects here and there. I'm on this panel because about a year ago, I made an indie pilot called Kelly and the Kung Fu Gators and put it online. And the whole experience has been very eye-opening, and I can't wait to share with you guys what it was like.
Jordan, go for it.
Cool. Hello, my name's Jordan Whitman. I primarily develop things like No Man of Nowhere and Port by the Sea. And ever since, I guess also things have been a little bumpy in the industry, that I've been sticking around in indie and helping a lot of different places and shows, as well as being a background artist for many and a lot of other familiar shows.
Zach,
Zach's turn.
Is it me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I'm Zach Bellissimo. I've worked in the industry for like 10 plus years on mostly storyboard artist for stuff like Teen Titans Go, Clone High. I directed on Victor Valentino for Cartoon Network, and co-creator of an indie pilot called Long Gone Gulch, which came out in 2021 with my co-creator, Tara Billinger.
That's me. Hi, my name's Tara Billinger. I also been in the industry for 10 plus years. I've done a little bit of everything where I've done props, character design, art directed, I storyboarded and wrote on the Mickey shorts, did the Mickey ride at Disneyland. But yeah, we made a indie project, Long Gun Gulch, together in 2021.
Congratulations, and congratulations to everyone on all your hard work and understanding that all of these are precious babies to you in some way or another. So let's kind of segue with that one, which is where did the inspiration for your respective projects come from? Anyone who wants to dive in first, by the way.
Hands, where's the hands?
Do you want
There
to
you
do the
go.
same order? We can do the same order too. Yeah,
Gene raises.
Yeah.
I raise my
Go for it, Gene.
hand.
Come on.
I'll lower my hand now. I think it was like a couple years ago. I was really disillusioned after going through the development process at Nickelodeon with Planet Panic, and as I'm sure a lot of us have experienced, it's incredibly soul-sucking. And so I needed to get back to my roots a little bit of just making things without permission. And so I worked backwards from the problem of like, how can I make a series that's weekly that I could sustain conceivably, and designed everything, style, color, limited color palette, like everything was just to make it easy to produce on a weekly basis. And then story just came from stuff that I like, RPGs, anime, et cetera, et cetera. And then over time, I just slowly built up a team, and then, a series of events led to being a studio. And that's how NoXP got started. That's kind of the main thing that I'm hustling with right now.
Nice.
Oh, I'm too polite. I don't want everyone. You want to go with that?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Okay. So yeah, I think Long Gun Gulch started because we just loved old school Cartoon Network, Nicktoons. There's a bit of Gorillas thrown in there, and Sergio Leone westerns, and we just really wanted to bring back that kind of angular design with very like defined shapes, very expressive movements. We loved the unique storytelling of modern, newer cartoons, kind of like mysteries and lore and just fun stuff like that. And just combine that with more classic animation elements.
What he said.
I guess we could talk a little bit about what inspired Port. Oh no, sorry, Kristen, do you want to go? You can go.
No, you go first and then I'll go.
Okay. But I guess overall, it sort of started with like something like a mix between like Wind Waker and Over the Garden Wall for me. A lot of like things that always like stuck with me personally that led me to making kind of shows like that is just kind of more. I mean, I still like action and whatnot, but I like quiet moments and stuff too. And Port was definitely something that I just made to kind of prove myself a little bit and that I could kind of tell that kind of storytelling. And so that's more or less what drove me into it and wanting to dive into the whole process.
Yeah, I think where the inspiration for Kelly and the Kung Fu Gators came from was obviously Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But I think as a kid, I watched a lot of these Saturday morning cartoons and really, really identified with the girl sidekick. And I kind of thought, that's kind of a funny idea. It's like kind of taking the tropes of a Saturday morning cartoon, but exploring it from a different perspective. I also really loved these very kind of feminine sleepover movies growing up, like Clueless or the Pussycats movie, even Jawbreaker on the darker side. But I just kind of thought it would be great to combine the influences of my favorite sleepover movies into one story. And I kind of thought at the time, I'm in this position where it's the pandemic, nothing's really going on. I'm not like going out, and I just wanted to do something on my own once in my life. Even if it was the only indie project, I wanted to do it at least once.
I really appreciate you all sharing that. It's also interesting to hear all the various types of media that influenced everyone's taste. And it's cool to hear like kind of put it on a blender and for each of you, you can see some of the influences, but that doesn't mean it's anywhere near the same from the thing that inspired it. Um, that being said, for each of your projects, when you set out to make them, like Kristen, you mentioned, like if this is like the only thing I do alone, um, for each of your projects, was there a longer term plan or vision for them in mind? And then how were those expectations different or in line with what actually happened?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there was a plan. And then I realized that the plan was way bigger than I expected. So I think I got to a point where I finished the thumbnails. In my mind, I was like, this will take 6 months. And I finished the thumbnails and was like, oh my God, what have I done? And it took 2 years.
Positive thinking.
Yeah.
I'll raise my hand, so.
Go ahead, Jen.
So we also knew that we wanted to do this, so we kind of constructed what we wanted to do 6 months before we were actually gonna reveal it. And we wanted to make sure that story-wise, characters, design-wise, and the actual like funding, or like I think we're doing boards too. We did that all during the 6 months before, just so that we can rev and just like get into it if it does when we did release it. But I feel like people should work on other indie things to get adjusted to doing it like in a bigger scale. So I don't know. It was just like we didn't think of like all the stuff at the beginning, but even though we thought we like planned it out, there were still so many things that still was like a lot to take in, like the money, or like, oh, it's only going to be 6 months. It's never that. You always have to add an extra just in case, which is like how it is in the real pipeline at all the studios do that too.
Yeah, I'm glad to see out the chat and one of our attendees said just double the time, just add more time onto it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Gene, you want to jump in?
Sure, yeah. I mean, yeah, like I mentioned earlier, like for me, scope was a big thing. And I've been yelling that at anybody that I talk to, any younger artists that are like starting out and they ask, they pitch projects or whatever. It's like pilots are really hard. And like I am also perhaps foolishly embarking on trying to do a pilot, but that's more of like a self-fulfillment thing and the story that I want to tell. But No XP was an exercise in scoping down and making it something that could be done quickly, and also in a way that would like let other people jump in on the pipeline. And we did a Kickstarter in last October. We raised like a little under 20K, which is like not a lot, but just managed to stretch it real thin. Obviously, I think an important thing to say is like nobody makes money on indie projects. Like that is a big thing that people really need to understand, I think, is that like if you're embarking on this, you're doing it because you love it and you hope to pay everyone as fairly as you can, but like you're not. It is not a lucrative thing. And if it pops off, maybe eventually, you'll start to see some money from merch or something, but it's very hard. And so like, yeah, I my first bit of advice is like, if you're trying to start something, you're trying to create a story, figure out how you can do it in as small installments as possible and in a way that like you can do by yourself. And beyond that, you can get help. You can find collaborators or you can hire people if you have a budget, but like it's tough. I've also done longer pilots. I've done longer, things too. And it's like, yeah, like Tara said, like it just balloons. It's always going to be bigger than what you thought it was going to be.
Yeah, my advice when I talk about doing small things, do an animatic that's rough, do a short cycle of one of the main characters of your idea just to like get into it, and then start gathering friends that would like to contribute as well, and then work from there and go to the minute, to the 5 to the 30 minute polish. Like you have to see how it works with multiple people and yourself too.
Yeah, we were convinced that like when we started like I knew going in it was going to take like a while, but I was like I think I could do it in like 3 years. And then like lo and behold, it's like it took like 4.5. Like it's because like again, we also have other things that we were doing on the side. Like we were working at the same time, like we were doing many things, and it takes a lot. That being said, it's like we made the pilot to sort of speak for itself and to stand on its own. We've been speaking with a few places currently, and things are like kind of in that to be decided area right now. But it's just like that's just because like everything that's going on, we feel like. So it's like we'll probably know more later in terms of like if it can be more, because we always had an idea of like we want to make like a limited series specifically, and I don't want anything to ever run on too long. And I think that kind of speaks for indie as well. It's like you want to start like what Gene was saying. It's like you want to make something short and to the point, or like at least something that you can like feasibly do. And that I really think is prevalent and the best way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tempering the optimism with also realistic expectations, and also so you don't burn yourself out either. It's definitely a good key takeaway on that one. Um, Kind of digging further into that, and this is open to anyone who wants to jump in or has a knee-jerk reaction first. What is one big thing you wish you would have known before making your project? Or another way to think about it, what's something that could have made the process so much easier?
Not animating it. That's a joke.
Is it though?
Cynicism has entered the chat. Okay, Gene, you got your hand up. Go.
I mean, yeah, like I don't know if there's any one big thing, but I think that's true. I think Jordan's right. Like I think, or was that Zach that said that? Yeah, like you don't need it to be fully animated. And like I think I've been seeing a lot of stuff on TikTok and Instagram with people doing really rough animation or straight up animatics, or even just like filming their screen. Like that's a whole thing on TikTok where people just film their screen and they like scrub through panels, and it's like those get like 1 million views. Because I think that as appetizing as it is to do a really well animated pilot, because that's what we grew up loving, and like that's what we want to do. We want to put that out there. None of us are really in a position. That's like an important thing to note, is like those cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, like I don't think people realize that like an episode of TV costs like $1 million to produce. Like that is like a big thing that I feel like a lot of people online don't understand, is like it's with union rates especially, like it's like $1 million plus to make something of like a Gravity Falls level, Steven Universe level caliber. It's like it's expensive. But I don't think people online necessarily need that. I think that there is ways to tell very compelling stories, or even just funny gags and stuff with like animatics, with simple doodles, stuff that is just like really minimal. There's an Instagram account I want to shout out. I think it's called Mummy Joe, if anybody knows Mummy Joe. But like Mummy Joe, I want to applaud because like they have 1 million followers, and their stuff is essentially just still drawings with just like funny voiceover. I don't even think they have music most of the time. Like it's just so simple. Like you don't need to go shoot for the moon necessarily. You can do a lot with a little. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, simplicity is key.
Yeah, I think something that I wish that I had kind of kept in mind more, I was very, very focused on the process of making the animatic, because I love making animatics. I love that process. Something that is more foreign to me is promotion and social media. So I think something that I wish I had done before jumping in was to really kind of like the way you would schedule working on the storyboards, you schedule working on the promotion. I think my advice would be to reach out to animation YouTubers who are big fans of animation, who would be willing to maybe react to your pilot or promote it in some way, and to really be like, not can I say naughty words, but like be
Do your best. Do your best to self mod.
Okay, okay,
we
I
don't
won't, I
have
won't.
the amazing digital circus little like honky horn or whatever. So.
To be very friendly and to put yourself out there. I'll say that.
Yeah, that's true. I'd say like, I mean, just kind of to riff off all that, it's just like, yeah, just keep it simple. And I think the biggest hurdle, at least for us, was like probably animation too. Like it's just like that. It takes so much time, and that's literally where like, every single dollar that like we pretty much put into this was not every single, but it's like 90% is like it all went into animation. It's like we did about like as much as we could ourselves. Like me and my partner, like we did like I want to guesstimate like 50% like ourselves, and then everything else was just like we threw at other animators as best we could with what we had. And I genuinely think it's just if you're going to tackle a project like this, it's just you really want to like understand that the longer it is, the more hell it will give you. So
You're doing the majority of the heavy lifting when when it's your idea.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we were in the same boat where Zach and I like ordered like whatever jobs that we knew we had to do on our own, we would do. So we did cleanup, we did all the character designs, we did Zach's done like a big portion of the animation himself and did all the keyframes. But yeah, we learned from the process that having it so fluid, even though it wasn't fun to work on, it was very slow process because we had to keyframe everything. So I think like economically, we've learned better ways to make a drawing look amazing without it being too crazy, because like some people won't even notice. So it's like we learned all these new tricks that helped us economically try to think in a better way so that we don't have to take like years and years to do it on our own. And another thing that helped us too is what you're saying was we were working while we were making Gulch. Like we both had jobs in the industry, and it really helped because at a certain point we didn't have enough money from the Kickstarter anymore, so we started paying from our own pocket to finish the last little bit that we needed to be done for the animators that were doing such fluid stuff. So it helped.
Yeah, I also want to point out like there's two of you, which is more than just a single creator at the center, but you're also working full time, and you did your own if I remember, Long Gone Gulch is like half-hour pilot, so
Yeah,
that's a lot.
It's frame by frame. I think there's like one tween that's like half a second long in the whole thing. So
but inside that tween is like a boiling, is like 3 frames that go over and over. So it's not,
yeah, that's the only one. But yeah, that takes a lot more time and money. So having like the drive also helped us because we would have our day jobs, and then right after we ate dinner, Gulch was the night, and then weekends were the night. We were hermits. We like you will lose a lot of free time and hanging out with friends and doing all your favorite things when you get set up for that. So just keep that in mind too.
Yeah, man, labor of love for all y'all. Oh, sorry, what was that?
Oh no, I was just making a dumb joke. So the only friends you have will be the ones you draw. So.
Sad but true.
Of that. Okay, our chat is blowing up with that one. Okay, but actually, this is something that's coming up in the Q&A, and ties in nicely with our next question, which is that animation is a collaborative effort, and so it takes a village to create a movie or a show, a short, or a pilot. How did you assemble a crew to develop and produce your pilot? And then we'll get into the juicy money talk in there. If you want to sprinkle that in while you're in there, it's fine. But some of the folks in the chat are asking, like, how do you meet folks, or how do you meet the right folks for your project too?
Okay.
All right. Keep on the roll, Tara.
Okay, so what we did, because we were already making the idea and we were working in the industry, we kind of would just like show little tidbits, like look at this mouth chart we made of the character, and look at our Bible. Can you check it out? Just give it a little look-see, and people started checking it out and being like, "This is cool. I'd work on this." And we're like, "Oh, really?" When it actually happened, they're like, "Do you need any help?" So a lot of people were just our friends in the industry that wanted to be involved in some way, and then others were. What another thing we like looking for is the same sensibility as ourselves in other people's artwork. We love like, oh, I would love to work with that person. They have the same kind of like style or like just something that I gravitate towards. And then we kind of just like, because we had people that were from like Sweden and Philippines and the UK. So it's just really cool to just throw it out there. It might be like bad timing or whatever, but if they gel with you, they will want to work with you. So just like asking and yeah, some people's schedules won't work and but it gives you an opportunity to be like, oh, I actually got to work with them because I don't know, they have the same sensibilities. It's really all it was. Most of the people on GULCH are just coworkers we actually worked with before.
Gene, physical hand raise.
Physical hand raise. Yeah, I mean, seconding. I think that also, like, you know, as awful as it is, like Twitter is a great resource for just finding people. And I think it ties into what we were saying before, that it's like if you put out smaller bits of whatever it is you're making, you're going to bring people into the excitement of the project. I did the first 5 episodes of No XP myself just to like establish it and the style and the rules. And then it was actually around the 5th one that I started. I brought in Laura Serrano Morales, who's now our director for Jellybox, and like because she did some fan art and it was really good. And I was like, hey, do you want to work on this? And like that happens a lot, you know, like people do really amazing fan art and it's like, wait, I should be paying you. Like it's usually how it goes. But I also have a lot of friends that help out. Like my wife Casey is our art director for all our projects that we do, and like she also believes in it. Our head writer Sean was reached out to me saying like, hey, I want to help out with writing if you ever need it, and now he's the head writer for No XP. So it's like I think you have to put yourself out there first, but the energy will come back to you for sure.
Yeah, we oh, sorry, go Kristen.
No, wait, you go first.
Okay. We when we started, we yeah, again, it was just like the two of us, me and my partner Ashley, and we did a similar thing that Tara said, which is just like we did a lot of like character design and all that, and a lot of the production ourselves. And we had a budget set aside specifically to give an idea. It's just like we had a savings and an idea saved up that we had like $100,000 budget, and it's like that's like what we had to work with for animators and all of that for when they came on. And yeah, basically just once we went through all that, like that's just where the production started rolling. Like it yeah, I don't know. It takes a lot. That's all I can really say.
Yeah, I mostly kept the crew to voice actors, sound mixers, the composer, because I wanted it to be as affordable as possible so that I didn't have any barriers to getting it done. The biggest barrier ends up being time when you do it that way, but that's, you know, you can at least work with that. I think that finding people to work with was, I mean, kind of like what people are saying, it's friends, it's people you know, people you meet throughout the process. I was really grateful that I worked on Star versus the Forces of Evil because I was able to keep in contact with Adam MacArthur, who does the voice of Marco. And we had like a friendly rapport. So when I had this project, I was like, fuck it, maybe, F it, maybe he will be willing to work on the project. And the kind of the same with the composer, Brian. I reached out to him and I loved his work, kept him in mind. My co-producer was a friend of mine who has a lot of experience doing indie shorts. So being able to talk with him every week, kind of figuring out what we're going to do each week, what our goals are for the month, was incredibly helpful. And then Mackenzie Atwood, I just found her on Twitter and just loved her voice, loved her audition, and was like, that's it, that's Kelly. So it's kind of for me, it was a combination of people I know and people who I've met online.
I did want to add as well, because you just reminded me, sorry. We worked on or my partner worked on like 12 Forever during like our time. And that production kind of like is, many people know, like kind of derailed after a certain point. But a lot of those artists and stuff on that show were really wonderful people and stuff, and great to work with. So when they had to shift off and we're looking for work, we stepped in and we're like, hey, like, would you like to come over here? Like, we'll pay you like to do this while you're looking for new work. And I think that's a huge thing to also consider too, is like we always try to do our best to, whenever we bring someone on, it's like, hey, this is our, like, it's like a pit stop. So it's like, if you ever hear anything, or it's like, if you get like full-time work, like during or after or whatever, it's like, take it, like go out there and grab that. And I think that's one thing that we definitely notice, like when working with others.
All right, gonna take. Wait, Gene, did you want to jump on that, or should I move into the question
Real
about
quick, yeah,
financing?
something
Yeah.
something I forgot to mention is like I keep a literal Google sheet of artists that I come across or animators that I come across that I think would be good for projects later. And I had somebody tell Spencer Wan. I had Spencer Wan. I was head of Studio Grackle. He told me like, he's like, you got to keep a log. Like if you see people, write them down, because like you never know. And I've used that. Like anytime that like new stuff comes across, like anytime we're starting up new projects, I can just quickly go through and I keep it organized. I like write down their what they're good at. And that helps too, because it's like, especially once you have a budget, it's nice to be able to quickly like put together a team of people that you know are good, you know.
I have one more thing to say.
Go ahead. Go for it.
Also, be friends, have multiple friends that do different things. Like you were saying, me and Zach are both the creators, but we both have different sensibilities, where Zach is into the boards and the animation side. I was into the character design, but also the management and production management, all that. So it's like having people, like we know so many people that are compositors and like voices and the musician, like all that stuff. You should have a roster of all that too, because it's like you will need those people a lot.
Yeah, I would say I agree definitely on like the diversity of friendships and the different skills and abilities that everyone can bring together. You can know 100 character designers, but if no one knows how to make a move, that gets into a whole nother thing. I am getting a lot of questions in the Q&A about sustainability. So this leads nicely kind of into the more direct question about making an e-pilot isn't cheap. Um, any tips or insights on your financing strategies? And both also in terms of sustainability for creating a project, or Gene, in your case, sustainability for a whole studio. It's been pointed out in at least for Team Long Gone Gulch, also doing this on top of having a full-time job. So yeah, any insight you can shed into that about how have you made your project one from start to finish with financing in mind, sustainability for future projects or your studio. And then maybe even talking about what does it take to get up to monetization? How feasible is that? What does that potentially look like?
So yeah,
I can go first, but go ahead. Zach.
Oh,
I'll ramble.
Yeah, so the when we did the Kickstarter, we did our best to factor in, everyone we had to pay. And we were like, well, it'll be a lot cheaper if we don't pay ourselves at all. And I guess we can just, yeah, like we said, keep our jobs in the industry. And I think for financially that helped us, because we didn't starve or go broke, but with that Kickstarter money, was able to pay a lot of the people we had. And when something else came up, like, okay, we put in some of our own money for that as well, because we had the kind of safety net of having a job for sure.
Gene.
Gene, you were very, you
Yeah,
were
you were
very
very
like on this.
Yeah, it's a loaded topic.
It is.
So cut me off at any point. I think that yeah, I mean that's the thing that I keep seeing being part of discourse on the Hell site. And like I think that like I said earlier, like people need to understand like yeah, most creators aren't paying themselves, which already is a burden. And you know, so it's like if you have a job, that's amazing. And for a good chunk of time, I have had a job when I was making things. The last like year and a half, I haven't. So like I'm all in on Jellybox just because it's like I have the time. But yeah, it's tough. It's hard to scrape that money together. I think a lot of the time I get the feeling that people think when you have a studio that you get handed a sack of cash. And that's just absolutely not true. And it's kind of frustrating to see that. Because at the end of the day, like I'm a studio in name only, you know, and it's still like me and like my friends. Like it's me and my wife and Sean and Laura, you know, it's just people, we're just trying to do our best to start this thing.
Oh, quick
And
question. Do you get tax
yeah,
credits for starting a studio?
I mean, Jellybox is like a DBA, and so it does help because it's essentially like self-employment, so that there's a lot of write-offs, and that is something that people should know. It's like if you are taking on projects, everything you do, if you're an artist, anything that you, any games you buy, any media you buy, any like, there's a lot of stuff you can write off. I don't know about tax credit. That's an interesting question. I don't know about that,
We
but
deal taxes for our stuff because we
what was that?
oh, we had to do taxes for our Zach knows more about it, but
Kickstarter,
Well,
yeah.
here's a fun tip. If you're going to do a Kickstarter, do it at the beginning of the year because by the end of the year, you'll be able to write off hopefully all of that money. Whereas if you do it at the end of the year, like I did, I was a fool. And my accountant was a miracle worker and managed to get me a return still because I wrote off so much stuff from that year, including like my part of my mortgage. Like there's a lot they can do. But yeah, avoid doing Kickstarters at the end of the year. Zach, did you have something to add?
No, yeah, Tara. I mean, yeah, it was Tara's Tara's tax guy that helped
helped us out
out
too. Make sure you have a
the
tax accountant.
Kickstarter stuff. Like, yeah,
That's another thing
Yeah.
too, is like we had to make like an LLC and all that and establish everything properly and before we continue. So that's another thing to take into consideration, as well as dealing with like setting up contracts, right, for your contractors and all of that. Like that's one thing that we dabbled in and had to make sure that everything is like in line and comfortable with the people that we work with too. Kind of talking about just like how we sustained ourselves like during is like we did freelance work kind of similar to like Tara and Zach is like I was doing like background designs and stuff on multiple different productions like Hell of a Boss and like my partner was on We Baby Bears like at the time. And then so while we did that and like took our savings from earlier and stuff and from my previous time in my previous job, we then just basically we just put that aside and we realized like that's that is what it is. But in terms of like what we did to like make money afterwards and what we hope for a revenue, that wasn't really our plan. Like we never really were like, yeah, we can't wait to make money from this. Like it was always a passion project. But it was a nice surprise though. It's like we released like we didn't even advertise it really. It was just like a small little PDF art book like online, like in like some other stickers and stuff that you can like self print out and like screenshots. And we just sold it for like $5-10 and it did pretty well and we made like at least some return. And I was like, it did shockingly did all right. So I really do think like if you have something that people attract to like merchandise and like legitimate, like planning that out, like can really sustain it and really actually do good work.
It's never enough.
Yeah, it's
Never
true.
enough. Yeah,
It's never enough.
I think that like, you know, I don't want somebody's gonna take it out of context later, but I think that it's like I think for me at least it was important to get used to the discomfort of like never having enough money, you know, and essentially like being okay with people helping out because they want to help out a lot of the time, like, and that's okay. Like when it's like this and it's not like there's money coming in, people will offer their help and initially there was always that like guilt of like you're doing too much, but then you start to accept that like people, if they offer their help, you should take the help, because like ultimately like people want to be a part of something, and if they believe in you or they believe in the project, they just want to be a part of something, and like that's okay. At the level that we're at, the indie animation level, you're just not going to be able to pay fair wages. Like you're just not, like we're not going to be able to do union rates. It's insane. Like you can't. Like it's just not, because like the we should definitely be expecting more from the big studios, and like absolutely, like we've been yelling about that with the AWI shorts. Like the studios are full of they're full of something. But when it's like this, it's a labor of love. Like these are passion projects. And so yeah, I don't want young creators to be scared off because they are not going to be able to pay their workers union wages. Like you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot before you make anything, before you put any pen to paper, if you're worried about people getting mad at you for that. Because most of the time everyone's just scraping it together.
Yeah, I get frustrated when I see people online saying like, why don't you guys just band together and make something in response to our union fights? And listen, I can say as someone who made something very scrappy that I'm very proud of, that I did for as cheap as I possibly could. I still spent around $4,000, not including the time that I put into it, which was a labor of love. Again, I'm so glad that I did it, but $4,000 is still like a Chanel handbag, which this is my Chanel handbag. I'm very happy with it, but I just think how insane would you sound if someone's talking about being unemployed and fighting for fair wages, and you're like, just buy a Chanel handbag. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, that's my rant.
Sorry,
I
that's
do.
my new measurement for the budget of an indie pilot is how many Chanel handbags is this?
Yeah.
Is it a Birkin or is it a Chanel handbag? Yeah.
Actually, I think this is a pretty quick question here, which is relevant. How do you figure out your final budget, or do you have the final budget when the project is complete and everyone's been paid?
We knew our budget like as we were going in. Like I was like, we immediately knew what we could spend, and I was like, we're doing the rest. It's like that's what it takes. It's like you're either doing it all or like you have something that you have set aside. I did want to touch briefly on we were talking about like union rates and whatnot, and it's just like those by the way are formulated around like California rates, right? It's like that they're specifically out of California, which is like that's another thing to take into consideration too. It's like what part of the world do you live in, and like what are normal rates for where you currently live, and how can you like distribute that accordingly as well? Because I really think that that's like a very important thing to keep in mind and consider as well when looking at that.
Um, Tied into this question, are there any hidden expenses, not always financial, but sometimes financial, that most first-time creators don't think about?
Production. I think production doesn't get enough of a. It's like, you'll see the obvious art stuff, you'll see animators, you might see design in the budget breakdowns, but I see a lot of indie productions go off the rails because they don't have somebody that's good at keeping track of schedules and just like staying on people and organizing, and it's a very important thing. And like our production supervisor Sean, who's also our head writer, but he's done a great job keeping track of everything, which is I think a good reason why things have been going smooth for us, because I don't know what I'm doing. Like I can't, like my brain doesn't really function that way. So like that's a very important thing to try to have when we were talking about like the kinds of friends you should try to recruit into things, like somebody who can organize, that's a very good thing to have.
That was kind of tied into an earlier question I moved around, which is what helps you stay organized. It sounds like things that can help you stay organized is also having a team member that has production experience.
Yeah, so I did a lot of the production management for our thing, and then because I learned so much from that, I did that a lot on Clone High because I was in charge of like 20 people on that too. So in order to make it organized, I would always check in. We would always have like usual weekly check-ins with the animators because you also have to put in account the mishaps of like people going on vacation or an emergency or people getting sick, like all that stuff will happen in the gist of that too. So being organized by, we would do a color coordinated thing of the whole entire show. Every scene was labeled and colored, and it made it so much easier to just like flip a switch and be like, that's green and this is red, this is like being worked on. And it made it more organized to understand how far we are and how much needs to be done or how much work we need to get or how much we have to do on our end. So just having someone to communicate is what I always feel needs to be done. Even as a creator, even if you like aren't in it all the time, you should be there to communicate like everyone's, because there's some people that are like, I need help or get thrown into it. And I always like to have periods of time where you can communicate like once a week to be like, are you doing good? Or do you need any advice? And then that's when they can say it without feeling like scared in like these meetings with like 20 people. So that helps a lot doing all that.
Yeah, my partner Ashley was really in charge of all of like similar, in charge of most of the organization. I'm not a very organized person, but it's she managed to make every kind of Google Doc and layout for organizing and timing and drop offs, etc. for like our little Google site for everyone, to make sure that like everything had its right place and where it would go. And like I cannot stress how absolutely vital and important that is, especially like even naming conventions and like and all of it. It just makes things so much smoother, and you know where to find it. And I can't thank her enough for being able to, because yeah, without that, like it really would have been a struggle.
I have something to say too about the hidden cost question.
Yeah.
I think something to keep in mind is I can only speak for myself, but after I finished the project, I kind of fell into a very intense period of depression. And I didn't really understand at the time why that was. I kind of thought like I finished this big project, I should be celebrating and shouting from the rooftops. And I really was confused as to why I was feeling so down. And I talked to other friends of mine who had finished big projects before, and they said that's very, very common. So I think just something to keep in mind. I think when you're making an indie project, it feels so big and you don't really think about the finish line and you don't think about what happens after it's done. Just keep in mind that you might have to have a mourning period.
Kind of like that, just that come down slope. Oh, sorry, go for it, Zach.
No, that's a great thing to bring up. I'm kind of in it right now. Like we're wrapping up season 1 of No XP, and it's like, we want to do a season 2. I'm hoping we do. We're gonna need another Kickstarter. But yeah, there's definitely a moment of like, well, now what? It's just like, and so what I wanted to bring up, because Angela mentioned merch, and I've seen some people talking about it in the chat and this and that, and it's like, I mean, look, like that's the only real place to get any kind of revenue, because like YouTube isn't paying out. Like, and anybody who has tried making a living off of YouTube knows that like it doesn't pay well. You have to have millions and millions of views. You have to have digital circus numbers before you start to make any money. Patreon is also becoming harder to monetize because it's oversaturated and like everyone's broke and everyone's unemployed. So it's like you're probably not. It's really hard to get the sort of like Patreon support that you could get some years ago. And so it kind of circles back to the same like form of revenue that all the big studios were doing, which is merch and ads and sponsorships. So like sponsorships are still viable if your content can support it in a way that doesn't feel too frustrating for the viewer. But like merch is hard because the fans have to really love what you're doing to want to place an order for a plushie or whatever. Like it's a pretty tough thing to get an audience large enough that is engaged with your characters that heavily. You can start with small things, you know, pins, like whatever, like there's always stuff to start with. And that's fun, but you're not funding a pilot with that. Like, so, and that's a tough thing. And it's, I don't know, like, I think that we haven't really cracked it as an independent industry. And it's an ongoing thing because I still don't see a path forward for it, in a way that is like lucrative. I feel like inevitably it's all going to come back to like hoping that a studio with you know, millions of dollars wants to fund your thing, or hope that you're a digital circus. And that's tough because that's kind of a lightning in a bottle moment. So, you know, for people like that are banking on merch being the thing that reimburses their costs or whatever, like I don't know, man. Like you have to bank on it not happening. I think that's a much safer bet and plan accordingly because that, and this is all like just my, you know, my experience. Anyone can obviously disagree, but like that's how what I've been seeing is like people being like, oh, just, you know, sell some plushies. It's like, how much do you think? First of all, there's a huge upfront cost for plushies. Then you have to have somebody that is shipping it out. And I'm lucky to have a friend that I'm paying to ship stuff out. But like, dude, like running
That's
it as a
actually one of the
business is
hidden
like
cost things, though. Like, I think
it's
that
true.
you are touching on the idea of labor as well that goes into the additional income stream that is supposed to help you. So having to have a friend who has the time and the energy to be able to ship out the merch, someone who can respond to orders. What if someone cancels? What if orders get wrong? This is also something I've heard from folks who run their own Kickstarters and say you have to make sure you don't just build in the costs of the product itself, but the cost that it takes to pay yourself or pay someone else in order to fulfill orders as well.
Yeah.
So I think that
Also shipping
that's
fees.
and shipping fees. Not everything is media
People,
mail.
well, yeah, you have to, that's one of the things that I always tell people that try to do Kickstarters is always include not just America shipping fees. We've had people from Mexico and Japan, and that's like $30+ right there that you might have to pay if you don't accumulate it into your cost. So keep that in mind. And it's like we've like had people who we worked with and made figures, and we did those out of the love of the craft because like those are like designer figures, but you don't get a lot from them because like they take so much time and money just to build it. So it depends on yeah, it's like you couldn't make figures and you can make all this merch, but yeah, you have to always be on to either like get it out there, but also have a crew to get it out there with you because it's a lot to just be like sitting on the floor with a bazillion boxes and putting all the stamps on by yourself, and that adds up to your time and the money to do all that because then you have to buy all the cardboard boxes and the bubble wrap and all that stuff that adds up too.
I think also
You
like
did. You were. Oh, sorry.
no, go for it.
I was just saying that's what Tara did was stamped all the boxes, packed all the rewards.
Yeah.
Just had
Had
a
a system.
little system going.
Yeah, I think it's to kind of go off also what Gene was saying earlier too. I think it's like animation in a scary way is like a sunken cost fallacy where it's like you if you make merch beforehand before you even release something, I think that's a really dangerous thing to do because it's like you don't know if this is going to be like really huge or not. Like I really think like it's important to like to put it out there first and really gauge upon that and then start making things to like to sort of match the want and demand and start like easing into it a little bit. And that's even to say where it's like you mentioned plushie costs and it's like yeah that's why we're not doing plushies and stuff right now is because it's so expensive to make them that it's just like are you really going to see much of a return? It's
But
very
you also
important
don't
to
want like 300 of them.
yeah
Like,
exactly.
Just take up space
You
in
want
your
like
room every day.
a few
Yeah.
like maybe like it's
to test the waters and then
yeah
Anybody that's done this knows this, you know, and people that haven't, they will talk about it with not understanding. Like, and it's frustrating to see the same kind of stuff be reiterated over and over again by people who have never had to organize this. And it's like, yeah, the upfront costs of merch were brutal. And like ultimately the only way to save them is to order in bulk. But to order in bulk, you have to be really confident that you're going to sell, because otherwise that, yeah, like you're going to be stuck with boxes of whatever it is you ordered. So it's like, I wanted to do an acrylic standee of No XP, and we found a cheap vendor that was, somewhere in China, and like we had to do more of the communications, but it all worked out. They were a good vendor, and like we put them out online, and like I think we sold like two, and this, our Discord server was popping off saying like, yeah, this would be great, we'd love to see it, yeah, awesome, yeah. And so you get like false response sometimes too, where people are excited about a thing, but then when you have to put money down, suddenly they can't. And that's no shame on them, like it's fine. I don't buy much merch for things either, but it's the reality of the situation. Is it's like, this is the same reason why the big networks don't put money into merchandise until like seasons 2 or 3 of a show, or never. Now that's a other topic.
Yeah.
But it's because like it's such a massive upfront cost, so you better be confident that you're going to have hundreds of people that are buying up your stuff. So it's like, yeah.
Zach, did you have something about the health expense?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up, harkening back to what Kristen said, and thanks for sharing that. But definitely, if you're doing something indie, you will have to invest in your health, like get yourself like a good chair or like a standing desk, because you're gonna be working for long, long hours and don't want to hurt your back, like animating silly cartoon, like have to pay whatever surgery or whatever. So I would say, yeah, try to be healthy and invest in
Yourself.
being able to
Yeah.
to be comfortable and healthy while you're working also, because that can also be a hidden expense related outside of production.
Health and wellness is a big thing. And I think something that often isn't always factored in as well, and what a toll that creating can take on you physically, mentally, if you're sacrificing sleep to work a few extra hours after work and before you go in for your next shift the following day. Being mindful of time, I'm gonna ask two more questions. One of them does pull from the chat though right now, or from our Q&A. So there's a couple that have been asked about leadership. And one, not just motivating your team, but also any philosophical guiding North Stars. Whether that this has been your first management position as a leader, or if it's the umpteenth time that you've had to lead a team. What are some of your general main values, as well as ways that you help keep your team all together in their eyes on the ball?
Did I put my
Team Long Gone Gulch.
I don't know if it's
Want to
you
go
go
first?
first, Tara.
No, you go first. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean, working on Long Gone Gulch just kind of like, threw us into like leadership roles. Because at the time when we started, I was storyboarding on Teen Titans Go and working with the directors there, and I was like, man, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could be a director, because I think I'll like board something good and they'll come in and come up with something even better. I'm like, whoa, okay. So, but I don't know, we were just confident in our abilities for our own thing, and I think because working on Long Gone Gulch as our own thing, it kind of prepared us for more leadership roles in the industry. But also, advice, I think, would just be like, have empathy for people, like be nice, be a nice person. Don't be like, oh, this work is garbage. Like, they're trying to learn your style.
You cut off, I think.
Uh-oh. Zach, I think
If you can't communicate, like show them, like do like a draw over. Um,
You're cutting out.
what's that?
You're cutting out.
What was? Oh, sorry. Well,
I
Tara,
think
if
we
you want
got
to take over.
Yeah.
Sorry, I said, do you want to take over?
Yeah. So being in charge of so many people, you have to like acknowledge like morale and make sure like, oh, this person's not like in like, because everyone is like that. It's like we don't just draw every single day and we're just like, yay, we're ready to draw. Like sometimes people are like, I don't feel like it today, but you know, like you kind of like need to be aware and be cool with everyone and just like be open to your crew because they're the ones doing this for you. So it's like they're not going to just magically make this on your behalf. You got to also show them that it's worth creating with you and being a good person with them. And I feel like just understanding and communicating is what the best part of creating something and collaborating as a team is to be doing something like this, especially online. And a lot of people do this online through different states and stuff. So it's like being as communicative and there's no dumb question. Always just be open is what I always do with all my crews I've been under.
Thanks, Tara. Gene, you want to jump in?
yeah, I agree with all that. I want to add to it, like, to tie it into the hidden cost thing too. I think like the extra space that you and the rest of your team will need is an important thing. I think that a lot of the time when people are scoping out projects, it's a tendency to try to figure out the exact amount of weeks or time or whatever that it's going to need. But in reality, like somebody said, like you should double it. Part of the reason why is just to let people breathe and to like not create these tense crunch situations. And like it's hard. It's probably going to happen. It's still going to happen because things sneak up on you. You know, like sometimes people just get sick or they're tired or whatever, and they have to take time off or they can't, whatever. And obviously you have to allow them that space. But as far as like larger picture pipelines go, like you have to make sure that there's that time for that kind of stuff, for life to happen, and also for yourself as a leader, you got to make sure you're allowing that space. That's where it gets really hard because when you are on these like shoestring budgets and you're doing so many different jobs, it's really hard to set aside that like breathing room for yourself. And like, you know, Kristen was saying like the mental health angle, and like it ties into this, like you need to make sure that you're allowing yourself that like the rest, the breaks, and like everything, so that it's not a like pressure cooker situation. Because so I was lucky enough to go through manager training at my last job because it was like a mobile game studio where they had money to throw around, and so thankfully they spent it on that at least. And so there's a lot of stuff that I learned from that, and part of it was like I had to unlearn that behavior of like feeling the need to always do more and fill any gaps in your week with more work. And I suspect a lot of people probably share that same habit. And I've had to really try to like, if I have nothing to do that day, I'm like, good. Like I'm going to not do anything today. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to like go for a walk. Because when I gave myself that space and I let myself just like rest, like everything's delegated, everyone knows their tasks. I need to just take a moment, because if I keep piling on more stuff, then I get more and more frustrated. I get more tense. Then it's harder to react in a calm way to things when you know stuff hits the fan. Like it's like you have to allow yourself, and it's a very like Zen mentality. You know, you have to keep your nerve system kind of down here and like make sure that you're not already heightened. So because there's gonna be disasters, there's gonna be fires to put out. So you have to always try to create a scenario for your life where you're comfortable taking on like tense situations and not panic, not overreact to them. But
I think that's a really good call, because self-care you is also good leadership you as well.
Yeah.
Like it takes you from being here down to here. Yeah, Jordan. And then we're also going to do a fire round after this.
Yeah. I guess overall, when it comes to leadership and whatnot, I think it's just, yeah, kind of what Tara's saying too, is like just be empathetic, communicate, know people's limits. One thing that we did that we set up that I found worked really well for a majority of the people that we worked with. While like, I guess to start first, it's like I think it's important to remain like professional when doing these things. It's like it's a transaction, right? It's like you want to just you have to understand it's like who's doing the work on the other side like of the table. It's like they don't see it as their dream project, right? It's like they see this, it's like it's a job, you're paying them, and it's like, and you have to be respectful of that, try to make it easy on them. But aside from that, I genuinely just feel sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, right. We developed a program basically, or I developed like an idea that if someone needed more time on something, or I'd ask them and I'd be like, hey, how much time do you need on this? Let's say they need like 2 weeks to make this animated scene happen. I would give them an extra like 5 days. I'd say, okay, that's your deadline. I'm going to add 5 days to that to like give them that wiggle room. So that way they it kind of feels like self accountability. It's like you're holding yourself to your deadline, but now I'm giving you more just in case something goes wrong or if you need that extra time. And that's not really including like, it's like if they end up in a hospital or something tragic happens, I'm always forgiving of that stuff. Or it's like sick or sick days, etc. too. But that 5 days is mostly there to be like, whatever you're thinking up in your head, I'm going to try to extend to give you that so you're not stressed out of your mind, right? It's like I don't want you to push yourself too hard either.
That's exactly what I've done working on Clone High, because like what is it, due dates are so crazy. So whatever I would do beforehand is I would do 20 designs of the main design chart, so that the actual designers won't get that crunch later, and I'll take the bullets. I'm the one that's like gonna protect them, so that they have a good flow, and that usually worked. So if it was scenes that I knew were gonna get cut or were gonna get changed, I would design them so that way they get the momentum and they get like, they feel great about their work and continue to enjoy working, while I will take all the like extra work to, that's like a good thing to do if you're going to be a showrunner. You take you just know what would be the best for your crew so that their momentum and their enthusiasm and everything making it is the most enjoyable process.
All right, thank you all. Let's if we can keep folks on for just another like 5-10-ish minutes. Because I don't want to keep you too long. But let's run through one very fast closer question, and then I'm gonna dive into the Q&A and try and get as many that we have in here as I can through. So for our closer question, we do have also a lot of younger and newer creatives in this audience tonight. Hopefully no one is now too jaded after this conversation, but any bits of advice or recommendations about where to get started? Sometimes this might be in the form of looking to do bigger indie animated projects, whatever that may mean. Or it can also be for some any technical advice, where did you learn how to animate, things like that. Or finally, another way to respond to any bits of advice for younger, newer creatives, what's the best way to start off something small by yourself?
I'd say to know your limitations more than anything. Like definitely understand like what you're capable of as an individual, like when you're diving into a project. One thing that also I deeply stand by is I attended like a small like Q&A or something with Alex Hirsch, and he made the statement that like whatever your first thing that you make is probably going to be the worst thing that you make like going forward, because you're always going to be growing and you're always going to like change things. And I absolutely agree with that and stand by it. So whatever you're trying to make, understand that's like you're going to grow during that process. Like you're going to keep getting better at whatever it is you're doing, and make those changes. So keep that in mind, and make sure you pace yourself accordingly. I guess that's sort of my only advice.
Yeah, don't. Go ahead, Jen.
And making something is better than not making anything. It's like, as long as you're making something, it's achievement at, like, a lot of people just say they're going to do something and they get the dopamine from that. It's like, make it. If it's short, it's a completion. Just create whatever, something short, minute, walk cycle, mouth chart, whatever. It's an accomplishment, and that will also be able to show you, like, you're pretty much telling everyone else, like, look what I can do. Like, this is what I can, I'm up, like, I can do something, you know, like, that's what we all want to do. We just want to show everyone, like, this is what we can do. I can, like, form an idea. I can make complete a thing is what is the most impressive. If you can just complete, even if it's small, complete is the key. Just do that.
I think there's like so many different ways to get started, but like a lot of people, yeah, are like trying to find the right time. Like, oh, or like, oh, when I learn to animate, then I'll be able to make this thing. Or, you know, when I have 2 weeks off, I'll make it. It's like, I don't know, you have to carve out time if you really want to do it. And if maybe, yeah, if there's something you want to learn how to do, like learn it for or while you make it, you know. But yeah, just do it.
Things are a lot more accessible. Like, there's so many things you just find online, I'm sure, of the basics of constructing a pilot, like doing the animation or doing lessons or animatics. It's way better than when I was younger. So
Yeah, like I think that I agree with everything. Everyone said exactly what I was going to say. You know, starting small. I see a lot of people saying that they talk about these like magnum opuses that they want to make. Like I've had a lot of younger artists pitch these projects to me that it's like that'll never happen. And it's not because they like, you know, it's just like you're gonna run out of steam. Like you're just gonna run out of steam when you start, you know, and that's the worst. So it's like the smaller the better. I also think for a lot of people, including myself, like being you know, a lone wolf is like a recipe for burning out really fast too. And we've talked about it, but it's like having good partners, having collaborators is like huge
support.
because yeah, support. And it's like, you know, if you can turn a creative project into hanging out with your friends, metaphorically or otherwise, like that'll carry you forward quite a bit. And it's especially now as an adult in my 30s, like I sometimes start projects just with friends just because I want to spend time with my friends because everyone's off living their own lives and have kids potentially, you know, and whatever. But even in your 20s and earlier, maybe that happens, you know, everyone has their own stuff going on. So it's like when you have a reason to get together every week and work on this thing, you'll chip away at it. And then suddenly a year passes and now you have made a thing and you have something to show. And that's something that I think is important is like you need stuff to show because an idea can live in your sketchbook or in your head or whatever. But if it's never finished, like no one's seen it. So what was the point of all that? If that is your intent, if your intention is to make stuff for people. Anyway.
Yeah, basically what everyone else said about starting as small as you can and avoiding the epics. I also think I definitely agree that share your work as much as possible. I think sharing your rough drafts with as many people as you can, you're going to figure out who's going to give you feedback where you're like, oh, that's a good point. I didn't catch that in my own work. And you're going to kind of learn who amongst your friends are really good at providing that feedback. Definitely keep an open mind with feedback. Don't take it personally. I'll be honest, the first time I shared the roughs for Kelly and the Kung Fu Gators, I was so nervous. But the more you share it, the more comfortable you are with getting that feedback. And I really think that sharing your work and getting that feedback is really, really key to getting it across the finish line.
And it'll give you more experience with pitching as well. So
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you all very much for your time tonight. In looking at our time right now, I'm going to take just two more questions from the Q&A. Thank you everyone who has been hanging on. I know that we have had a ton of questions. I've tried to answer you some of you directly in the Q&A that I have also knowledge and experience on. And I'm going to try and group together a few of the questions as well. So for our last couple of questions, one, we've had people ask about building an audience and what what are some pieces of advice you have around building an audience? Where do you start? What is helpful? And have you also changed any of your projects in order to have more mass or general appeal?
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's a crapshoot. I think that like you people, and similar to the merch question, a lot of people will be hyped on a thing when you're announcing it, but then they might fall off. And like that's fine, you know, like you just have to expect that. Like also a lot of the time when you drop your first episode of something, if it is a consistent project, people are really excited about the first episode and then they forget after a while because it becomes too ritual. And so that's like a thing that I don't think people expect, but it is absolutely a problem. We're all at the mercy of the algorithms now, and that's horrible for any kind of media, but it is something to keep in mind is that like there's a lot of noise and it's very hard to get people's attention. So consistency is a big thing. You know, you can have a big project, but like people might watch it, they might say, great, and then they move on. So like at least when if you're trying to make something that is going to have a fandom, I think consistency is going to be your friend. Like if you're able to stay on people's minds, which is again small, like something small that you can give a drip feed of to keep people excited and keep their imaginations going. And then what was the second part of that question? There was like a one
Have
at
you
the
ever
end that
shifted
I
or
wanted
changed any of your projects in order to have more
to.
mass audience appeal?
Um, that's a tough one, right? Like, yeah, because it's like I think it's like always tempting. Um, and I think everyone does it. I do it. You shift it a little bit, but it's like you don't want to lose sight of what your intentions were either.
Yeah,
So
I feel like you shouldn't think that way and just do what you feel that you love to do for your own sake, because you can try to follow whatever you're doing that you like or are inspired by at the time, but by the time it's done, it's like there already is the new thing and that thing is outdated in your eyes. So just do what you know that you're gonna be able to spend months or years on, because that's going to be the drive to make you finish. And it's like you should do the thing that you're most like influenced and want to make. Like you don't need that's just me though. I don't like think of that like, oh, I got to change it so that it fits this demographic now. I just want to make what I feel is fun for like me and being proud of creating the thing that I had in my mind for myself. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Me, that's like the point of indie animation is like it's your unfiltered idea. Like you pitch something to a studio, it starts out like whatever an action adventure thing, and they're like, well, we okay, now we want it to be more family because we think it'll sell better, and then it becomes like a family thing.
They pull your teeth out. They pull the teeth of the project.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that's I think I don't think you know you should
Indie is
make it for you.
yeah,
And
indie's so open. You can be anything. I feel
yeah.
like there's more there's no stakes as much as like being a part of like a studio. So I feel like there should be more risks compared to a studio. So I that's why I love indie, because it could be anything, and it could be weird, it can be cool, it can be the stuff that we do see in media that's like by production. But I just like seeing a little uniqueness of like a person that's making it on their own is more fun.
Yeah. I genuinely think like just listening to like that little you do want to make it for you at the end of the day. It's like it's the thing that like
Most
it's
important.
it's your heart, right? Like it's that's what you're trying to show to people and share. The more genuine you are, like the more I think that kind of comes across with an audience too when they're watching it.
They'll see
They
it.
they do, yeah. It's like I genuinely think like every time, like if when you're watching something with heart, like you can feel it. Like I don't know, like it's something that's just a little special. And I genuinely, yeah, I agree with you all. Like if you just keep making the thing that you want to do and keep speaking like your language, like that's what will sell it. Like that's what brings people. Like you don't need to try to post, like that's why I don't like algorithm stuff where it's just like, oh, post every day to like get new followers. It's like, I'm not doing this for followers.
I
I'm doing
don't.
like
Yeah.
the one thing I was happy with, like with what we did, is like I really didn't advertise it. I was like, the reason people watched it is because they told their friends. Like I was like, they told the people because they had a connection with it. And that's what I want more than anything, is like
And
just
what's
yeah,
okay?
go for it. No,
I
you're
was
good.
gonna say what's cool is all the people that we worked on Gulch are still our friends and still do project with us, and all the people that love Gulch are friends with us now, or like will tell us, and it's just like it just spreads, and it's just like that's what I wanted. I just wanted to have that community of just like, oh, I like this because I also am inspired by this, or so and so and so and so. So it's just I'm happy for it spreading in a way that allows me to see people that have similar interests and like influences.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like that's how you find it. It's like you find people who enjoy the stuff that you do, and they do always exist. Like there's a lot of people out there.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I think be careful with that part of your brain that wants to seek out, that is obsessively seeking out criticism, or ignoring all the positive and just gravitating to the comments that say, why don't they have tails? Because they didn't feel like it. And but you know, I think I took the time to kind of go back to my project and read through the comments, and there were so many lovely, wonderful comments of people saying like, I laughed out loud watching this. I was having such a bad day, and this made me laugh so hard. And I just, I don't know. I don't think there's any substitute for that feeling. So you really have to savor it. You have to remind yourself to look at the positives there. So
Take that win.
Yeah, take the wins for sure.
And last question. Any tools or resources that you recommend?
I can
You
tell
can
you
make something
not
out of
to.
what's that?
I was just gonna say I could tell you what not to recommend. Like
Go for it.
don't mention the forbidden two letters with AI. Just do not touch. But sorry, go for it. Give real good tools.
Well, there's so many that it's so accessible at this point where you can, like you were saying, your friend or the TikTok or you were talking to Gene about your friend that makes stuff that are just fancy doodles. It's like you can just make like something out of Flash. Like Gulch was all done in Flash, because we're just accustomed to it. Whatever you're accustomed to, use it. If it makes you work in a way that's comfortable for you, it could be pen or paper, it can be stop motion. Just figure out what's best for your particular sensibilities and go from there.
What was surprisingly helpful was LinkedIn Learning. I didn't have any experience working with voice actors or recording voice actors. And I just kind of looked on this free learning website. There was an entire class on how to organize your files, how to interact with voice actors, and yeah, shockingly underrated. Don't pay for it. It's free on LinkedIn.
It's also, if anyone here has a library card, you also get access to Lynda for free. That's Lynda with a Y. And it is an online learning platform, 100% free with your library card. Access that. You can learn so many skills.
By the
Shout
way,
out to public libraries.
oh yeah, I was just gonna say that to follow through with public libraries, we've been using them more recently, where it's just like for like their laser cutters, for like they have everything, and it's like you can just use it. Like and for real, like go to your libraries to get whatever you need. Like it's crazy.
They have recording
3D
booths.
printers.
Yeah, they have all of it.
There is
Sorry,
I've been in talks with this group that's working on an app called Palette, and they're like animation folks that are getting into tech, and it's like a specific project management indie animation project management app. And we're starting to chat with them, and they're kind of reaching out to studios, I think, right now. And I just met with them last week, so this might be preliminary, but they're really nice guys, and I think what they're doing is great. because there's not great tools for production management, and even in like major studio work, like we all know how much like Shotgun is terrible and all these other ones. So keep an eye out for them, and I think that they'll do cool stuff because they're essentially rewriting the way that production management happens on on this scale, which is really cool. I think it'll save a lot of people headache once they kind of go more public with it and people catch on. It's really good tool so far that from what I've seen.
Yeah, YouTube's really helpful. I mean, I learned how to fix a toilet on YouTube, so you can learn how to animate or write or character design. Like, everything is like, Tara said, I think before, everything is so accessible now. Like, just go for it. Nothing's stopping you.
Yeah, not at this point.
Also, my bad. Linda is now LinkedIn Learning.
Oh,
Here's a link.
Oh,
There we go. Shows you
Oh,
how
I
dated
liked-
I am on that one.
I like the little glasses lady. She's
I
very
know, I
sassy.
miss her. All right. Thank you all very much again for your time this evening and for going into extra innings tonight. I really appreciate it. Our audience really
course.
appreciated it. We had over 100 people on this call tonight. Hopefully many folks benefited. Thank you. You guys are getting so much love in the chat right now if you haven't opened it up.
Thank you for
Thank you.
listening.
Yeah, and yes, to everybody out there, thank you for listening. Thank you for coming out tonight. Really appreciate it.
Hopefully it was
gonna-
helpful. Hopefully everyone's
Also,
reading stuff now.
someone in the chat was posting a Google Doc if anyone wanted to stay in touch. Yes, if our panelists would like to sign off, I'll keep the chat open just for another extra minute so folks can grab that information. But Kristen, Georden, Tara, Zach, and Jean, thank you again all very much for your time tonight. You guys have been fabulous.
night.
Thank you, Angela.
Oh,
Thank you.
Angela,
and
that was
also,
great.
here is the Mapping Native Lands link again for anyone who would like to use that and look as well. Thank you all very much. All right, you are free. Go be free.
Thank you,
Bye,
Angela.
everyone.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
hosting.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.